Hey folks, thanks for checking out this video. Robert, the narrator here. I wanted to come on to do the second in my 3-video series about the core mechanics of my tabletop role-playing game, Peace, the RPG. And I have to say that I think this mechanic, the attack stat mechanic, is the most unique aspect of my role-playing game, Peace. And I've been role-playing for 30 plus years. I can't think of a system that does what the attack stat mechanic does in Peace. I didn't pull it from any other system. It came from my desire for Peace to do certain things. 14 years ago, I was sitting around and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if a system had player characters, I call them heroes in the game, completely unafraid to wade into a large number of NPCs and have a good chance of surviving, and not just because they all of the NPCs were mooks. I also wanted to make sure that face characters still would remain effective and wouldn't just be inferior fighters when the swords came out and the arrows started flying. To accomplish these goals, of course, you would have to have a system where characters could make multiple attacks. But I didn't just want to say, okay, heroes, at third level, you have 3 attacks. And the reason for that is, in other games I've played, I've noticed that all of the dynamic natures of a conflict and the variety ends. For example, when a melee fighter gets into melee range, the variety in the combat pretty much ends. At that point, every turn kind of becomes, okay, I attack, I attack, I attack. Next turn, I guess I'll attack, 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 pass the turn. I wanted the multi-attack system in Peace to be dynamic and non-repetitive and exciting, and to rely on the heroes using their abilities in a way that gives them the most attacks possible. And this is the way I achieved it. So this is the Elven Priest that I made a couple of videos ago. As you can see, heroes in the game have 3 attack stats. You have Warfare, Influence, and Power. They are pretty much self-explanatory. When you want to bite, scratch, use crossbow or sword, you use Warfare. When you want to befriend, taunt, or frighten, you use Influence. And when you want to cast spells, you use Power. You also notice that all of the attack stats have an associated defensive stat. Warfare has defense, Influence has willpower, and Power has resistance. Now, obviously, my priest who casts spells or invocations more directly has the highest attack stat being their power attack stat. But I don't want to cast invocations. I just want to do a basic explanation or tutorial as to how the attack stats work. So I'm going to have my Elven Priest, who is right here, use his 1d6 plus 2 warfare. Let's say he's run out of power points, can't do any more invocations, so he has to whip out his Quicksilver quarterstaff that I purchased doing character creation for him, and he's going to start swinging that. And we have a goblin here and an orc raider. What I'm going to do, just for visualization purposes, is I'm going to put the defense of the NPCs down. So the orc has a defense of 6, and the goblin has a defense of 3. I normally obviously wouldn't do this during the game, but this is just for you to visualize. So this is the way that attack stats work in the game. At the beginning of each conflict round, all of the characters should determine how they're going to approach the threats that are in front of them. Are they going to throat punch and swing swords? They probably would want to roll their warfare. If they're going to try to befriend or frighten or taunt a target, they would want to roll their influence attack stat. And if they were going to cast spells or do prayers, they would want to roll their power attack stat. Again, my Elven Priest is going to use his warfare with his quarterstaff. So he's going to roll his 1d6 plus 2, and I rolled a 5. So plus 2, that is 7. So he has 7 attack points for this first round of combat. Now, this is the way the attack stats work. Rolling that 7 total is what is called generating your attack points for the round. Attack points are used to make attacks and power your character's talents and abilities. Every time a character can spend a number of attack points equal to his target's appropriate defense, he gets what's called a damage check. And I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and move my priest adjacent to the goblin here. The goblin has a defense of 3. So I'm going to go ahead and put the 7 points here. So my priest is going to go ahead and use 3 of his points to get a damage check against the goblin. Now, you may be asking, what is a damage check? A damage check is, in my opinion, a really elegant way to determine if an attacker can damage a target. And essentially what a damage check is it is a comparison of the levels between the attacker and the defender. I have a little chart that lists the 10 hero levels in the game and the 6 NPC levels of the game. And basically on the chart, you cross-reference the attacker's level with the defender's level, and that gives you a number to roll on 2d6. In this particular example, of course, my elven priest is a first level hero, and the goblin is a minion. It is the lowest level NPC in the game. So what is needed is a roll of 6 on 2d6. That is what a damage check is. Now, just to give you a heads up, whenever you roll your attack stat or you make damage check rolls in the game, you should always designate one of the die as your fate die, and that die explodes, which means when it rolls a 6, you add up your total and you continue rolling until you don't get a 6. And that is how you can get larger outcomes with your roll. So I'm looking for a 6 for the goblin. Hope I get it. Yes, I got a 7. So my elf swings his Quicksilver quarterstaff and smashes the goblin into unconsciousness. And now he has 4 attack stats left. Remember, he rolled 7. It only took 3 to get a damage check against the goblin. Now my priest walks or runs into melee range with the orc. Now, as you probably can tell, there's a problem here. The orc has a defense of 6. So my priest would need 6 attack points to get a damage check against the orc. This is where the dynamic and non-repetitive or predictable nature of the attack stat system comes into play. One of the things that characters can do is they can use their bennies or action points, they're called battle scars in the game, to spend a battle scar to lower a target's defense by 2. So my priest is going to go ahead and spend his 1 lonely battle scar that I rolled for him during character creation and lower this orc's defense to 2. So by 2. So that makes his defense now 4. He has 4 attack points. He gets a damage check. Now this orc, as you probably have already figured out, is a higher level NPC than the goblin because he has a higher defense. This orc happens to be a lieutenant, which is the highest level NPC that usually a first level player character or hero should face. So the damage check required to damage this orc is actually an 8 instead of a 6. So I'm going to go ahead and roll. Oh no, I get a 6 instead of an 8. So the elven priest swings his Quicksilver, his Quicksilver quarterstaff. The orc raises his mace and blocks, and the elf doesn't deal any damage to the orc. So that is the attack stat system for the game. I think it makes every conflict round interesting. It makes it unpredictable, and it really makes it dynamic, mixing the randomness of rolling your attack stats with the abilities that you can bring to bear to get multiple attacks. And also, as you can see, it also depends on who you're attacking which determines how many attacks you can get in a given round. I really love that. Thank you for checking out this video. I hope you found it interesting, and I hope you found it useful if you are checking out the basic edition of the game, which will be in the description below. Thanks a lot, folks. See you next time.